Summer Dawn Inman grew up in the small town of Logan, Ohio. She was known for her kind heart, her love for her children, and her dreams of building a better life for herself and her family. Born into a close-knit community, Summer was the type of person everyone seemed to know. Her bright smile and warm personality were a source of comfort to those around her, even during life's most difficult moments. At just 15 years old, Summer met Will Inman II. He was older, charming, and quickly swept her off her feet. What started as a whirlwind romance soon led to marriage and, eventually, 3 beautiful children. From the outside, the young family seemed picture-perfect. But behind closed doors, the cracks in their relationship were already beginning to show. Will's behavior started to shift not long after they were married. Friends and family noticed how he became increasingly controlling. He would isolate Summer, limit her social interactions, and make decisions for her without her input. At first, Summer dismissed his actions, chalking them up to him being overly protective or wanting the best for their family. But as the years went by, the emotional strain became unbearable. Summer loved her children deeply, and they were her top priority. She tolerated Will's overbearing behavior longer than she might have otherwise, hoping to maintain stability for their kids. However, her patience had its limits. The turning point came when the control and manipulation escalated to a point she could no longer ignore. Summer realized that staying in the marriage was not only harming her, but could also affect her children in the long run. Finally, in 2010, Summer made the life-altering decision to file for divorce. It wasn't an easy choice. Ending a marriage with 3 young children involved is never simple, but she was determined to reclaim her independence. With her parents' support, she moved out and began the difficult journey of starting over. The divorce was anything but amicable. Will fought her at every step, particularly over custody of the children. He made no secret of his anger over losing control of Summer and his family. Despite his efforts to intimidate and manipulate her, Summer stood firm. She wanted a new beginning, free from Will's grip, and she was willing to fight for it. But as the custody battle heated up, so did Will's resentment. His bitterness turned into obsession, and his fixation on Summer only grew. What should have been the end of their relationship became the beginning of a chilling chain of events that no one could have predicted. Summer's desire to create a better future for herself and her children would ultimately set the stage for a confrontation that would have devastating consequences. After Summer filed for divorce and moved in with her parents, life began to stabilize for her. She was rebuilding her confidence, focusing on her children, and trying to create a safe, nurturing environment. However, Will wasn't letting go. Instead of accepting the divorce, he seemed determined to maintain control, no matter the cost. Will's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He would show up unannounced at Summer's parents' house, claiming he just wanted to see the kids, but his intentions were always more than that. Each visit felt tense, with Will often trying to guilt Summer into reconsidering her decision. When persuasion didn't work, his tone turned darker. Veiled threats, passive-aggressive comments, and moments of outright hostility became the norm. Summer began to realize that Will's actions weren't just those of a bitter ex. His behavior was obsessive. It wasn't about love or even the children. It was about power and control. Summer's parents grew increasingly worried, urging her to seek legal protection. While Summer considered filing a restraining order, she hesitated, fearing it might escalate Will's anger even further. The custody battle only added fuel to the fire. Will insisted on shared custody, not because he was deeply involved in parenting, but because it gave him a way to stay connected to Summer. He used court hearings as opportunities to confront her, often arguing that she was unfit to raise their children without him. Summer, on the other hand, presented herself as calm and composed, determined to shield her children from the turmoil. Despite her efforts, Will's presence cast a shadow over her life. Friends noticed that Summer seemed anxious and withdrawn. She confided in a few close friends about her fears, admitting that Will's behavior made her feel unsafe. She was particularly concerned about the growing involvement of Will's parents, William Inman Sr. and Sandra Inman. They were staunchly supportive of their son, often accompanying him to hearings and advocating for his side of the custody battle. What troubled Summer most was the way the Inmans seemed to enable Will's behavior. Instead of encouraging him to move on, they fueled his anger, reinforcing the idea that Summer had wronged him. The family dynamic was unsettling, and Summer couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching her every move. As the legal process dragged on, Summer started noticing subtle but unnerving signs that Will was keeping closer tabs on her than she realized. She occasionally spotted his car parked near her workplace, even though he had no reason to be there. Once, while running errands, she had the eerie feeling that someone was following her. Summer wasn't paranoid, she was cautious. She began taking small precautions, like changing her routine and avoiding places where she might run into Will. She even considered moving farther away, but didn't want to uproot her children. Her parents, ever supportive, reassured her that she was safe in their home. Despite the tension, Summer remained determined to move forward. She refused to let Will's actions dictate her life. She focused on her job and her children, finding small moments of joy in watching them thrive. But even as she tried to keep things normal, the undercurrent of fear never left. What Summer didn't know was that Will's obsession was far from over. With the support of his parents, he was already formulating a plan, one that would shatter the fragile stability she had worked so hard to rebuild. March 22, 2011, started like any other day for Summer Inman. She went to her job cleaning a bank in Logan, Ohio. Focusing on her tasks and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy she worked so hard to build. But by the evening, everything changed. Summer was scheduled to work late that night. After finishing her shift, Summer walked to the parking lot. It was a routine she had done countless times. But that night, something felt off. Witnesses later reported seeing Summer near her car, where an argument seemed to break out. Before anyone could intervene, she was gone, vanished in what seemed like an instant. When Summer didn't return home that night, her parents immediately knew something was wrong. This wasn't like her. She was dependable, especially when it came to her children. Her parents tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. By the next morning, their concern turned to alarm. They reported her missing to the police, explaining that Summer's disappearance was completely out of character. Investigators quickly sprang into action. Early leads pointed to the parking lot where Summer had last been seen. There, they discovered signs of a struggle, scuff marks on the ground and items scattered near her car. It was clear that Summer hadn't left willingly. This was an abduction. As the news of Summer's disappearance spread, the community rallied together. Flyers were distributed, searches were organized, and social media lit up with messages of concern and hope. But behind the scenes, the investigation was narrowing in on one troubling possibility, that her estranged husband, Will Inman, might be involved. Will's behavior during the initial stages of the investigation raised eyebrows. While he outwardly cooperated, his responses were evasive, and his demeanor seemed off. He denied knowing anything about Summer's whereabouts, but couldn't provide a clear alibi for the night she disappeared. Investigators also noticed that Will's parents, William Sr. and Sandra, were unusually involved, accompanying him to every interview and speaking on his behalf. As police dug deeper, they began to uncover troubling evidence. Security footage from nearby businesses revealed White Crown Victoria, the same model owned by the Inman family, circling the area near the bank around the time of Summer's disappearance. Witnesses also came forward, describing seeing a similar vehicle speeding away from the parking lot that night. This evidence painted a chilling picture. It suggested that Summer's abduction wasn't random but premeditated. Investigators began to suspect that Will, with the help of his parents, had orchestrated the entire event. Despite the mounting evidence, finding Summer remained the top priority. Days turned into weeks, and the lack of answers took a toll on her family. Her parents were heartbroken, her children confused, and the community grew increasingly anxious. Still, they refused to give up hope, holding candlelight vigils and urging anyone with information to come forward. The police worked tirelessly, piecing together clues and following every lead. Their determination would eventually pay off, but the truth they uncovered was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. As the investigation into Summer Inman's disappearance deepened, the evidence against her estranged husband, Will Inman, and his parents, William Sr. and Sandra, grew more damning. Law enforcement was relentless, using every tool at their disposal to piece together the events of that fateful night. What emerged was a harrowing tale of betrayal and cruelty, shocking even seasoned investigators. The turning point came when investigators obtained a search warrant for the Inman family home and vehicles. Inside, they discovered traces of evidence that raised serious concerns. Fibers matching the clothing Summer had been wearing were found in the back of the family's white Crown Victoria. Even more damning, luminol testing revealed faint traces of blood in the car, though it had been hastily cleaned. Witness accounts also began to paint a clearer picture. Several people recalled seeing the white Crown Victoria parked near the bank where Summer worked on the night she disappeared. One witness claimed to have seen a woman struggling as two men forced her into the car. Investigators were now certain that Summer had been abducted, but the question remained, where was she now? As the pressure mounted, cracks began to form in the Inman's facade. Initially tight-lipped, Sandra Inman became increasingly distressed during questioning. Investigators noted her demeanor, uneasy, nervous, and at times tearful. Finally, after days of interrogation, she broke down and revealed what they had feared all along. Summer was no longer alive. According to Sandra's confession, the plan had been to scare Summer into dropping her custody case for the children, but the situation spiraled out of control when Summer resisted. Sandra claimed that during the abduction, Will and his father had restrained Summer with zip ties before placing her in the trunk of the car. She remained there as they drove to an abandoned property several miles away. The details of what happened next were chilling. Sandra confessed that Summer had been strangled with a zip tie and left in an underground septic tank on the property. This horrifying revelation led investigators to a remote area outside Logan, where they discovered the septic tank exactly as Sandra had described. With heavy hearts, police retrieved Summer's body from the tank. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. A young mother, full of life and with so much to look forward to, had been taken in such a brutal and senseless manner. For Summer's family, the news was devastating. Her parents, who had held on to hope for her safe return, were now left to grapple with the grim reality of her murder. The community that had rallied together to find her was equally heartbroken, struggling to make sense of the violence that had shattered their small town. The focus now turned to ensuring justice for Summer. Will Inman, William Sr., and Sandra were arrested and charged with kidnapping and murder. Prosecutors built a strong case, using Sandra's confession, forensic evidence, and witness testimony to link all three to the crime. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the Inmans showed little remorse during their court appearances. This lack of accountability further fueled the outrage of the community and the determination of prosecutors to secure maximum penalties. But the journey toward justice wasn't over. The courtroom drama that followed would bring more revelations and, ultimately, a sense of closure for those who had fought tirelessly for Summer. The trial of Will Inman, his father William Sr., and his mother Sandra marked the final chapter of Summer Inman's tragic story. As the case unfolded in the courtroom, it became clear that the prosecution was determined to ensure justice was served for the young mother who had her life so brutally taken. The community watched closely, hoping for a resolution that would honor Summer's memory and bring some peace to her grieving family. Prosecutors meticulously presented their evidence, laying out the chilling timeline of events leading up to Summer's murder. Sandra's confession played a pivotal role, providing a detailed account of the abduction and the subsequent killing. Forensic experts testified about the fibers, blood traces, and zip ties recovered from the Inman family's car. Witnesses recalled seeing the white Crown Victoria near Summer's workplace on the night she disappeared, placing the suspects at the scene. The defense attempted to argue that Sandra's confession had been coerced and that her version of events couldn't be trusted. They also suggested that the evidence was circumstantial and didn't conclusively prove Will and William Sr.'s direct involvement in Summer's death. But these claims struggled to gain traction against the overwhelming weight of the prosecution's case. Throughout the trial, Summer's family and friends filled the courtroom, showing their support and determination to see justice done. Her parents, though visibly heartbroken, carried themselves with quiet strength, determined to ensure that their daughter's killers were held accountable. Will Inman sat emotionless during most of the proceedings, avoiding eye contact and refusing to address the court. William Sr. maintained a similar stoic demeanor, while Sandra occasionally broke down in tears. Their lack of remorse only deepened the anger of those who had come to see them answer for their crimes. In the end, the jury returned a guilty verdict for all three defendants on charges of aggravated murder and kidnapping. The judge handed down life sentences for Will and William Sr., ensuring they would never harm anyone again. Sandra received a slightly reduced sentence due to her cooperation with authorities, but her role in the crime meant she would also spend decades behind bars. The verdict brought a sense of relief to Summer's family and the Logan community. While no punishment could ever undo the pain of losing her, knowing that her killers would face the consequences provided some measure of justice. Summer's parents expressed their gratitude to law enforcement, prosecutors, and the many volunteers who had supported them during the search and investigation. In the aftermath, Summer's story became a powerful reminder of the importance of community and the resilience of those left behind. Her memory lived on through her children, who were placed in the care of loving relatives determined to give them the stability and happiness that Summer would have wanted for them. As time passed, the Logan community continued to honor Summer's legacy. Memorials and events were held to raise awareness about domestic violence and the need for stronger protections for those in vulnerable situations. Her life, though tragically cut short, inspired others to come together to ensure that her story would not be forgotten. Summer Inman's case was a devastating tragedy, but it also highlighted the strength of a community determined to stand together in the face of unimaginable loss. Her legacy serves as a beacon of hope, reminding us all of the importance of justice, compassion, and the enduring power of love. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to be notified as we add new videos daily. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.